Megatron!
Have you guys heard about that new Transformers film? No? Oh well, thanks for watching. Okay, in all seriousness, it's sad to know that's the case, as the box office has shown how much Paramount has failed it with its quite appalling marketing and limited theatrical release. And I say it's sad because everyone should check this film out if you haven't already. As I was writing this video, the film just got released digitally. So if you can't see it at the cinema, at the very least watch it on streaming whenever it becomes available. And I am being serious about how good it is, but why is that? Well, let me tell you, by talking about easily my favourite scene of the whole movie. But I just want to give you another warning for spoilers. I'm going to reveal the whole movie, so make sure you see it before you watch this video. Okay, here we go. The scene I want to talk about takes place during the film's climax. It is the moment that the whole film builds up to. The fall of D-16, the birth of Megatron. Just like with the video I did on Arcane, what I love the most about it is that it is a conclusion of a villain's origin story, the point of no return. In this case, it's not only one of my favourite villains of all time, but also one of the most famous rivalries in all of pop culture, and I think it does it so well. To truly explain why I love this scene so much, I have to start at the beginning. It's nearly impossible to talk about why the scene works without talking about the events that lead up to it. In the Cybertronian city of Iacon, the movie follows Orion Pax and D-16, two Energon miners who are the best of friends who set out to change their world for the better, but their adventure will turn them into the worst of enemies. One of the things the movie does so well is how it establishes both characters and their relationship from the very start. Orion Pax is the fun, rebellious youth, while D-16 is the level-headed stickler, determined to follow protocol more so than Orion. The contrast between the two of them creates some fantastic chemistry as they work off each other both emotionally and comedically.
Excuse me, sir. Allow me.
I really enjoyed the comedy in the film.
Badassatron.
Well, okay, apart from B. Similar to the main lead's personalities, the humour helps to create a contrast with the drama they'll go through later on in the film, but they never overdo it.
Badassatron.
Again, except with B. Okay, let me put it this way. The comedy involving Orion and D-16 works well. It kinda reminds me of The Prince of Egypt, where you do see our two leads getting along so well, then later on, a series of tragic events lead them to go separate ways with their conflicting viewpoints. Both films are very similar from a narrative structure standpoint, and I do mean that as a huge compliment. If it wasn't for the light-hearted tone, I don't think the latter drama would be anywhere near as impactful as it is. Despite their differences, one thing that both characters have in common is a desperate need to prove their worth. D-16 wants to accomplish this by working hard and following the rules, wanting to live up to the likes of their leader, Sentinel Prime, and especially his idol, Megatronus Prime, one of the original Primes. Orion, on the other hand, attempts the same by breaking the rules and thinking outside the box, trying things that the other Energon miners would not, such as disobeying orders to save another fellow worker from a collapsing mine. Another moment happens when the two of them illegally participate in a race organised by Sentinel Prime that only the best compete in. Unfortunately for them, both these occasions get them into serious trouble, including demoting their commanding officer, Elita 1, and getting thrown down into the sub-levels. The latter comes off as more shocking to them, since Sentinel Prime promised to reward them for unintentionally boosting the morale of the miners. This causes multiple arguments between the two, with their situation seemingly proving D-16 right to stick to following protocol, but deep down, there's still that desire burning inside him to do more. But after meeting B, what seems to be the perfect opportunity arises. They find a signal from Alpha Trion, another one of the original Primes, along with some coordinates to where the legendary Matrix of Leadership is found. This object was established right from the very first scene as the most important artifact, as it will allow Energon to once again flow throughout their whole world, and thus would remove the need for overworked miners like our two leads. Despite his hesitation, D-16 joins in because his longing to prove his merit outweighs his initial concerns. Along with B, and a very reluctant Elita 1, they manage to make it to the surface. This is where everything changes. Once they find Alpha Trion, and what remains of the original Primes, he reveals the terrible truth. Sentinel Prime sold them all out to the Quintessons, their mortal enemies, leading to their deaths, all to gain power for himself. But he unfortunately learns the hard way that the Matrix is earned, not taken. This revelation begins to shatter D-16's view of the world. Everything they all believed in was a lie, and if that's not enough, they even get to see this betrayal firsthand. The group finds Sentinel making a deal with the Quintessons. He provides them with the energon that all the workers were forced to mine to pay off his debt to them for having helped him wipe out the Primes. We're only at the halfway point of the story, but this is D-16's breaking point. Now, I have heard some criticisms of D-16's turn being pretty sudden, but I respectfully disagree. Think about it. Firstly, his entire worldview has changed. Everything he's known throughout his life is a lie, and they suffered so much because of the actions of Sentinel. From working non-stop to a hard labor job, to even finding out that he stole their ability to transform from when they were created. Admit it, you'd be pretty pissed off too. All of them are victims of a cruel system where the few benefit from the exploitation of the working class. In this case, all those that work in the mines. And especially in this day and age, I think we can all relate to that one way or another. Something else I noticed that separates our two main leads is that while Orion may have been the more adventurous and rebellious of the two, and you could definitely see this journey as him wanting that opportunity to prove himself, he's also rather selfless. He tries to help others however he can, whether it's wanting to make his best friend happy, saving those in need, or in this case, wanting to find the Matrix so they can free everyone from having to waste away in the mines. D-16, on the other hand, has more selfish desires despite wanting to be good. He wants approval, to be the best, just like how he sees Megatronus, a symbol of a strong and powerful leader who can inspire others. But his idea of leadership is different from that of Orion. When he snaps at Orion, he blames him for wanting to break the rules, thinking only of himself, but he's projecting his own feelings at this point, and when he reveals his greatest desire about how to deal with Sentinel,
No, I want to kill him!
It doesn't come out of nowhere. You see, the seeds of Megatron were always there, buried deep inside that good subservient little bot. He's not assumed that identity yet, but from this point until the end, it only becomes more apparent. And I have to go slightly off topic here because I can't go further on without mentioning this. Both the facial animation and the vocal performance from Brian Tyree Henry are absolutely incredible. The latter carries so much weight in his delivery of every line that I've never heard from Megatron before. And I'll just say it, I've been pretty disappointed, to put it lightly, with how Megatron has been portrayed in his theatrical appearances, from being horribly underutilized in the Michael Bay ones, to not even being mentioned whatsoever in both Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts. So you can imagine how absolutely delighted I am at seeing not only my favourite Transformer given a lot of screen time and acted so well, but also treated like an actual character, with deep desires that one can understand, yet completely disagree with his methods of achieving them. Case in point, when all of them are given the power to transform and defend themselves by Alpha Trion, what's D-16's immediate response? To go on the attack, to fight, to prove his worth through brute strength. And he does get that opportunity when they are all captured by the High Guard, led by Starscream, who's voiced surprisingly well by Steve Buscemi. That's just perfect casting. He defeats Starscream in combat, in front of every bot present. They cheer him on, celebrate his victory, and value him because of his brute strength and dedication to his cause. And he relishes it. This is even visualized by him creating his infamous fusion cannon on his arm during the fight. The movie has a massive theme of choosing one's destiny and the responsibilities that come with it. It's especially shown when Alpha Trion told them that he provided them with the means to change their world how they see fit. And if one were to use that power for chaos and destruction, it's only natural that it would take shape in the form of a massive arm cannon or a tank vehicle mode. Then D-16 and many others are kidnapped by Sentinel's forces and brought to him. Here, he spends his time gloating and even forcefully brands D-16 with Megatronus' symbol, like a badge of shame. Then they are rescued by Orion and all the miners he's inspired. And yet despite that, all D-16 cares about is killing Sentinel personally. And here we reach my favourite scene. And I have to say, it's not just one specific moment, it's practically the whole climax from this point onwards. Orion, Elita, and B have exposed Sentinel's lies to the whole city. Almost everyone turns against him. D-16 finally has his chance to kill Sentinel, but Orion intervenes. This is where both characters show how much they've changed as people. D-16 is so driven by his hatred, especially when Orion compares him to Sentinel, that he ends up accidentally mortally wounding Orion. The last shreds of his former self suddenly appear as he has the chance to save his best friend. But then,
I'm done saving you.
D-16 is gone. Not a single trace of the bot he once was remains. He has chosen to follow his path of destruction. He finally has reached his goal of murdering Sentinel with his bare hands, in front of everyone. They all witness his wrath, and yet many are inspired by it. He then takes Sentinel's transformation cog that was stolen from Megatronus after he fell, and D-16 takes it for himself, proving that he's no better than Sentinel. He's possibly worse. Just like how he takes his symbol that once meant everything to him and uses it to represent his cause, bastardizing it in the process. And as a final insult, he takes Megatronus' name and reshapes it in his image, Megatron. Everything he does in this pivotal moment shows not only how far he's gone, but also showcases his hypocrisy. He claims that they will no longer follow a false prophet, yet he will lead them into the future instead. One of the many things he despised Sentinel for was to take Megatronus' transformation cog for himself, yet it's okay when he does it? To get into a grim topic, his actions, along with what he promises to everyone, has its roots in fascism. If you ever look up Umberto Eco's essay on identifying the traits of fascism, you'll discover how many times dictators both in fiction and real life have these particular characteristics. The most notable ones that stick out to me in Megatron's case here are: 1. He appeals to social frustration. As reiterated throughout the film, the lower class Cybertronians were forced into working non-stop in the mines only for Sentinel to take the Energon for himself, and the High Guard, who were banished when they learned of his treachery. 2. Contempt for the weak. He wants to rule through strength like Megatronus, without any of the lies or deceptions. But Megatron's current viewpoint is so warped, to the point where he doesn't even understand why his idol was so beloved. He was strong because he cared about his people. He was a great protector, and a true hero to the very end. 3. Peace sides with the enemy. When he defeats Starscream, he claims that this will be the last time he ever shows mercy, and this is proven when he wounds Orion, and even though this was his best friend, his cause outweighs any personal feelings he had towards him, especially since Orion is willing to die for a more peaceful future, which means Sentinel lives, something Megatron would never allow. And 4, anyone who disagrees is a traitor. His first command is to destroy everything that Sentinel built and anyone who still follows him, not caring who gets hurt or even killed in the process. This is the character that was always there, we just couldn't immediately see it, or even believe it until it was too late. D-16 has fallen. Megatron has taken his place. Fortunately, Orion's sacrifice earns him the favour of their god, Primus, as well as the spirits of the original Primes, and thus is given the Matrix of leadership, resurrecting him as Optimus Prime. He defeats Megatron and banishes him from the city. This is the end of their friendship, with Megatron referring to Optimus simply as
Prime.
seeing him as no better than Sentinel. But in reality, it is him who chose a path of destruction, just like Sentinel. Megatron vows to return with the High Guard, now under the title of Decepticons. What makes the whole scene so good, as well as the movie, is how everything that was set up pays off big time. From establishing the personalities, desires and relationship between the characters, to the status quo and how it affects everybody. They then created a narrative that forces the main characters to confront the truth and decide on how to resolve it. And like many great stories, the hero and villain desired the same thing, but have very different ways of accomplishing it. But in this case, it's a tragedy that leads one of them to go to the extreme, and causes them both to become enemies forevermore. Aided by some outstanding and creative animation, some fantastic voice acting, a wonderful soundtrack, and a great understanding of simple yet impactful character arcs, Josh Cooley and his team have created a great animated film that completely defies expectations, especially for this franchise. I also love how this film can serve as a great introduction to the franchise for newcomers, while the older fans can emotionally connect it to other versions. Knowing how many countless battles Optimus and Megatron have had throughout the whole series makes this film even more emotional, even if it canonically doesn't match with others. I really hope everyone gets to see this movie and show their support, because the real tragedy would be if a well-deserved sequel never sees the light of day. Because if there's truly one thing to take from this film, it's that, like the characters featured in it, there's more to this movie than meets the eye.